in some ways, I've had many people say that what I talk about in developer marketing does not exist is actually something that would work on any audience, that being able to educate any audience will make them a better audience and makes for better marketing when you're doing that. I think there are a few things with developers that do make them a little bit different. First of all, their job is to spot edge cases. They're supposed to be able to avoid errors, right? And so part of that is to naturally be skeptical. It's to say, okay, what could go wrong here? And so I think they bring that same lens to any marketing that comes to them, where they say, okay, what this doesn't, something smells fishy here. What's the, right? So that's that kind of approach is part of their job. And so they're naturally good at that. I think there's then a second side of that where they've been burned by false promises in the past. So so they've seen marketing that makes big claims that can't possibly fulfill those promises. And so then that just sort of makes that skepticism that much greater. So not only are they naturally skeptical, but they've been skeptical and burned before, which makes them, even for great marketing messages, makes them uncertain about it. And one of those, so at Zapier, I wrote a guide on authentication and great authentication practices.
Yeah.
And it was a big 2,000 word post. It was all about, here are the ways, if you have an app, here are the things you should think about for authentication, and walk through it. And mentioned Zapier in, I think, 3 places in this whole post. And it was on Zapier's engineering blog, but still someone tweeted and said, this is a genius post other than the marketing spiel.
Right.
It's like, what market? Like, sent me back to my own blog post. Oh, well, I mean, I said that they should use the platform if they have our platform if they have a SaaS app. But I was like, wait, at the bottom of this So even when you try your hardest and really do try to do this educational content, you might have some of that skepticism. Developers are a tough audience, and they'll show you that again and again, even when your motives are, to truly help them. I alluded to it a little bit in my example there of that authentication post. And it's really the whole approach of the book. Also, the philosophy is education, not promotion. And so how can you find those topics where you can educate the audience? Because for developers, I mean, if you think about open source and, developer resources that aren't tied to a product, like it really, like, knowledge transfer is kind of the currency of developers. And so being able to be part of that is how you get the attention in the first place and build up the trust to be able to have the opportunity to welcome them into your technical product, to try it, and to hopefully buy it. That's why I think content is a great way to do it, because it's out there and is able to educate, without having to be face to face with every developer, right? So being able to put those lessons into content that they will find on their own. So that typically means through search traffic. So what are the things that developers are already searching for and thinking about? How can we have them find the stuff that will help them with those from us? Let us help them so that that will begin to build that trust. That if you walk through a technical problem in some content, and you're able to show a developer some of those edge cases, right? It's not all super easy. Then they'll say, okay, these people understand this problem, and so it's worth them investing their time in figuring out whether the tool that they have that also addresses this problem is something that can be used in that developer's job. So if you talk to a dev, they will absolutely tell you, just give me the facts, right? Just give me the give me the docs. I'll figure it out. What they're really saying is they don't trust what else you'll say beyond those, right? Yeah. Doesn't mean that they don't need to have a little bit of context. So I believe in any piece of content outside of a true reference material that is supposed to be just kind of, here are the pieces of this technology. Anything else, I think, needs some context with it. Yeah. And so some might see that as fluff. And you have to find that spot in between where it's not, and where it's not going to be seen as marketing spiel. But being able to connect technology to a real world problem, even if that real world is a developer problem, but being able to make that connection is an important piece of that. So on the surface, I would agree that developers, they don't want sort of, definitely like the hand wavy kind of, oh, this is so easy, a caveman can do it kind of Geico commercial is not the approach to devs, because they'll say, okay, you're hand waving over some stuff that might page me in the middle of the night, right? So but you do need some amount of context there, I think, to connect it to those real world problems that at the top I talked about were more interesting to me as a dev than the technology itself. Usually when we look at developer experience, there are some big things that are fairly easy. They're not sort of at the product level kind of things that can be solved, so that anyone marketing DevRel can step in on. And so a big one is, what is that first experience like? When someone, so they've heard of you somewhere, so somewhere they had a first impression, they maybe read some of your content, but when they make that decision to kind of check out the actual product, of which I think the documentation is an extension of the product. So when they do that, what sort of effort have you taken to guide them through that? And so some would call this the time to hello world. It is not the only metric to look for, but it is an important one. So I believe that you can have this journey is much longer than to hello world, and that you actually, so this first experience is what we're talking about. There's a first success that you hope that they have, but that does not have to be the hello world moment. So the hello world moment and the actual success are two different moments, but you can't get to that success without going through the first. And so having an opinionated single path, if possible, at what you want someone to do in their first time with your product is something you can orchestrate within the documentation, usually, often within the onboarding of the product also, but that's more product work and harder for a marketer or DevRel to be able to kind of dive in and provide that. But in the docs, having a clear go here to get started is one of the things that still we see in most cases is not there. And so making sure that's there, making sure you don't have 2 or 3 of those. That's a common mistake that we see, is that there are lots of different getting started, and they're like just a little bit different, and you get at them from different spots, and maybe different teams own them. But like, to a developer having their first experience, they don't need, like, it doesn't matter that you have these different teams that are competing. You need to kind of have this cohesive singular approach. So that's one of the ones. And then I alluded to it a little bit with first success, having a next step after that. So what is the next thing that someone does after they have reached that hello world first experience moment? And that goes to use cases. And so that's another thing that within your developer experience that's very important, is being able to think, how will someone actually use this, and how can we point them to those use cases? Sample apps might be another name for it, right? How can we point them to those after they've had that first experience?